What's going on, sports fans? Welcome to this first episode of KFR Sportscast. I am BG, and joining with me, as always, is Big Sexy and the Heel. So, sad news. Unfortunately, over the last couple of weeks, we did unfortunately lose our old YouTube page. So there was posts put out there of trying to regain some of the following that we had, but as much as we are sad to see it be lost, we press on, and we're still going to continue to give you great content. And so that's what we're starting with here today. So let's go ahead and get into it. In today's topic, NFL season is right around the corner. We obviously had our Hall of Fame game. But we got some players who are on different teams this year. So we got a segment is going to be called New Home. So let's go ahead and get into it. All right. So New Home. First of all, before we even jump into this, guys, how are you guys doing? It's been a minute. How are y'all doing?
Good. It has been a minute. A lot of great things going on in the world of Big Sexy. So nothing but good things, man. It's been great.
Yeah, things are going fantastic. Life's a little more stressful, but
I hear that. Okay. All right. So first person that we got up, as you guys can all see on the screen, is Eddie Jackson going from Chicago to Baltimore. And so just some stats here. So last year's stats, Eddie Jackson had 33 solo tackles. He had 1 interception. He was targeted 18 times. And he allowed 12 receptions. His overall grade was about a 58.6. So how do you think this fits into the Baltimore Ravens defense here?
Well, I guess the Baltimore Ravens safety room was a bit lacking. So they needed to bring a veteran presence in. Kyle Hamilton being the young safety that he is, they needed to find somebody that complements him. And Eddie Jackson can go back to the Eddie Jackson of old. Could be a solid piece for this Ravens defense. Obviously, last season wasn't the most ideal one to go off of, but he does provide a veteran presence on that defense where it's needed. So this could be a good thing for Baltimore. I guess we'll have to see how it pans out.
Yeah, it's a solid veteran depth on a defense that carried this team to the AFC Championship game last year. You need players like that. You need vets like that, leaders in your locker room. It's more of a positive than it is a negative. Yeah, he may not be the player he once was, but it was a much-needed addition to their defense.
All right, so the next one that we got is Calais Campbell. Calais Campbell is going to be signing with the Dolphins after a short stint with the Atlanta Falcons. Again, Calais Campbell had always had a monster presence really wherever he went. I know he had a long, good time in Jacksonville, I believe it was, causing just a ruckus. So let me go over some stats for him. Again, this is last year. So 36 solo tackles, 11 assisted tackles, 7 sacks, and 1 forced fumble. Overall, about an 80%, which I think this definitely will help that Dolphins defensive line.
Yeah, the Dolphins losing Christian Wilkins definitely need a veteran presence on the inside of that defensive line. Now, Calais Campbell is, I feel like last year did fantastic with what he had. He's what, in his, he's got to be in his 13th, 14th year in the league or something like that. He
was drafted in 2008.
Yeah, I mean, this guy's this guy just doesn't age. It's ridiculous. But yeah, I mean, they needed somebody to man that interior spot where the void of Christian Wilkins is, and I don't think you really could find anybody better on the market for the price point that he provides. So yeah, I feel like this is a good signing for the Dolphins just because of the fact that they're losing Christian Wilkins.
Yeah, in the AFC, so you're going up against Aaron Rodgers, you're going up against Josh Allen, and you need pass rushers, you need solid defensive line play in order to stop these guys, and even that doesn't always, not especially when it comes to Josh Allen, that doesn't always necessarily mean you're going to get him, but having these better defensive linemen and finding such experienced veteran depth that still plays very well despite his age, that was a very smart move to fill otherwise kind of a gaping kind of hole on the field, off the field. The metaphor works everywhere. Regardless, it was a good sign.
All right. So a little bit of a travel man of the league is up next, and we got Odell Beckham Jr., who was with Baltimore last year. Obviously had a stint with the Giants, and then he went to Cleveland, and he's been around. He's been around a little bit, So last year with Baltimore, he had 62 targets. He had 35 receptions, so roughly about 50% or so. 565 receiving yards, and then 3 receiving touchdowns. Overall grade about a 76.2.
Yeah, Odell Beckham, just unfortunately is just not the player that he once was, and that's not saying that he can't be a solid third option for Tua, because they're going to be showing a lot of coverage schemes to try to contain Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. If you're looking for Odell to be that true number one, he's just not that guy anymore. In this scenario, he stayed healthy for the most part in Baltimore last season, but his production just wasn't there. As a third option, you got a guy that's a sure-handed guy. He doesn't really have problems with drops unless it's the wild card game against the Green Bay Packers. That's another story for another time. And he gets off of a boat in Miami. Ironically, he goes to Miami. Anyway, that's neither here or there. I don't hate this signing for the Dolphins, but I know some people that are Dolphins fans aren't exactly over the moon with this signing. Could be a decent thing if you're looking for more receiving options for Tua.
Yeah. Pops included was not a fan of this signing as well.
He's a guy that you got in this spot. He's going to get a lot of one-on-one matchups. Tyreek gets all the coverage, and even Waddle gets his. So if you got a guy that can beat one-on-one coverage still in Odell, then you're going to get something out of him. All those, the tears in his legs, him getting older, him missing a whole year. The guy we once knew of Odell Beckham is long gone, but I think he might still be of use because he's still a guy that can beat some of these guys one-on-one, that can still find the space. You're distracted with Tyreek Hill. You're distracted with Jalen Waddle, and even their run game's pretty good too. I think this is probably one of the best places he could have gone.
Yeah, he's definitely had, he was a little quiet, in Baltimore, but, let's not remember, when he had his stint with the Rams, and he was, Super Bowl MVP up until he got hurt, for them. So I do agree. I do think it'll be a solid fit for him. Somewhere where he can still kind of lay low and he doesn't have to be that top performer.
Right. Kind of playing the little devil's advocate here too. You mentioned that he did have an entire year off. So one could say that. It's taking him some time to get readjusted to the speed of the game. So last year kind of didn't really tell the full story as if he could still be a very good wide receiver.
Yeah.
If not an elite one. But it's gonna be interesting what they can use him in that offense for. One, you just hope he stays healthy, and two, you just hope that his his attitude is in the right place. Because I mean, there's the narrative that he his bad attitude and everything like that. But I feel as though, I mean, I say this, but then again, like, everybody's not the same person they were, like 5-6 years ago. You know what I mean? Like, a lot can happen in that time. A lot of growing up can happen in that time. I don't think he's that person anymore, but I mean, there is a history there.
All right, so our next signee was J.K. Dobbins. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe he got hurt week 1 last year, correct?
Yep.
Right, so obviously his numbers are going to be obscured by that. So, but for the week that he did play, basically, he had 8 carries, 22 yards, 1 touchdown. So, you can't really focus on that.
Yeah, I had him on my fantasy team, and that was disgusting.
So you can't focus too much on that, but when he's healthy, he's productive. Because I think it was the year before or something like that. I mean, and I can even look that up.
Yeah, so I mean,
he had a solid year.
I'm a huge J.K. Dobbins fan, but at the same time, guy can't stay healthy. Guy's just had this history of he plays more than 2 games and he's back on the shelf. Like, him and durability are not in the same. I think he could be very valuable to this team if he stays healthy, but I don't think so. I think a more valuable pickup for this team was his old teammate in Baltimore and Gus Edwards. That may be the guy that they lean on in the running game more than him this year. But if he can stay healthy, I believe he's going to contribute. But he's got to prove that he can play more than 3 games. He's got to. Because you go in 1 game, week 1, it's like, I'm already hurt. And I'll never forget watching it because he takes this weird, awkward angle on 1 tackle. I think it was the touchdown that he scores. And then he comes out and it was like, okay, maybe just tweak something a little bit. Oh, no, he's out for the season. It's like, that sounds about right.
Yeah, J.K. Dobbins, man, it's just the good old story of what could have been. Especially if you're a Baltimore Ravens fan, they spend a pretty decent draft pick on him. I don't think it was a first rounder, but it was something like a second.
It was a second rounder.
And they had high hopes for this guy, and he was just hurt all the time. And it's an unfortunate thing that's not necessarily 100% his fault. Because injuries happen in the game and happens to more rather than others. It happens to, some people a little bit more than others, but, it's an unfortunate thing that he just had to deal with. If he can string together a full healthy season, then the kid can be a really talented running back. He can do a little bit of everything. He can run between the tackles. He can bounce it to the outside. He can catch out of the backfield. But the thing is that he just can't stay on the field, and it really sucks. It really sucks because I was really excited for this kid coming out of college, and he's just been hurt all the time.
So, next one's gonna sting a little bit. So we got Stephon Diggs going to Houston. So last year, just about top 10 in every category. 159 targets, 100 receptions, 1,183 yards, and 8 receiving touchdowns, 81% overall. This is he's going to a spot where he doesn't have to play number 1. But
so he doesn't have to be the number 1, but it all comes down to mentality with this guy. In his head, he's like, I still need to be number 1. And it depends on if he keeps that attitude or not to if this will work in Houston. Because he did it in Minnesota and he did it in Buffalo.
Right.
To where he took his ego and put it over the team, over his quarterback, with the tweets, with the whole back-ended 2 years in Buffalo, where it was just, let me be indirect. Let me tweet. Let me say, the carriage, pay the horse and not the carriage. insinuating that Josh Allen would not be successful without him. Stuff like that, and just not being direct, and just like the back end of the season for Buffalo last year, and when they went on their winning streak, I think Stephon Diggs had one touchdown down that stretch, or that touchdown actually might have come right before that stretch. Not to say that the man doesn't still have talent, because obviously it's still there. But that Bills team offense was flowing pretty well to where they were optioning and going to who was open, and he didn't like that. Doesn't matter if you're up 30 points, if you're down 30 points, if you're in the game, whatever the situation is. If you haven't fed Diggs the ball at least 8 times, he throws a fit. And how does that fit in an offense where you got Tank Dell, where you got Nico Collins, where you got Dalton Schultz, where there are a lot of mouths to feed, and the only way it's ever going to work is if he changes his stripes. And he's already blown through 2 teams. It was so bad to the point that Buffalo said, screw it. We'll take all that cap hit, and all you need to do is give us a second rounder next year. That's it. Take him off our hands. We're done with it. Detrimental to the team. Will it be good? I think I'll be optimistic about it for him. I think he does provide a great asset to this team. Will he let himself stay an asset to that team?
Right.
That's up to him. And history doesn't dictate that.
Well, yeah. So I think as far as on the field product, I mean, this is a major deal for the Texans. Obviously mentality wise is going to be something that is left to be seen. But I think, the Houston Texans were already, a problem offensively without it. Now they add one of the top 5 receivers in the NFL on their roster. And it's, I think this is going to do wonders for that Houston offense, especially with a CJ Stroud, the rookie sensation, going into his second year. Just showed flashes of greatness. Now you add a legitimate number 1 receiver. Yeah, this is gonna be crazy. And didn't they get Joe Mixon too?
Yeah, they did.
Yeah. The Texans are gonna be a problem. I almost want to pick them to come out of the AFC this year.
Yeah.
I really hope this team turns out like the 2011 Eagles.
You just hope that CJ Stroud doesn't hit like a sophomore slump. Like that's all you hope. Because I would hate to see it, because he did so great last year, and because there was so much success just for that team. But all right, so speaking of Eagles, Eagles are going to be losing Hassan Reddick, which was a pretty big key part to their defense. The last few years. And he's going to be signing with the Jets. So the Jets obviously needed some defensive help because it's the Jets. So just going over Hassan Reddick's last year's stats. He had 21 solo tackles, 6 assisted tackles, 13 sacks, and 1 forced fumble. Overall 75%. I mean, he's a productive player. And this 13 sacks is, it's high, for a defensive player. He was, tied for 12th in the NFL last year. But I think that's a huge increase to that Jets defense, their defensive front.
I agree. One of the things about the Jets last year, obviously with Rodgers getting hurt, the one part that wasn't the problem for the New York Jets was their defense. Their defense was solid last year. Obviously their offense couldn't move a blanket off the bed, but their defense could get stops and generate some problems for opposing offenses. Now they add a serious edge rushing threat to that offense. I bet you Quentin Williams is happy that they got to sign Reddick. I think this is a good trade for the Jets.
Yeah, I think it's a solid pickup myself. They are stockpiling on veteran talent and to add to their core. And when they're trying, the Jets are, despite what happened last year, are still with Aaron Rodgers. They're Super Bowl or bust. And with that pickup, that is another solid piece that team needs.
Next person here is Jadeveon Clowney, who is going into his 10th year. His 10th season this season. He's gone over with the Panthers. Obviously, I believe was he a number 1 overall pick when he got drafted, right? I mean, I can look at that.
Yeah, way back when, yes, he was a number 1
way back in
overall
2014
pick.
from Houston.
Yeah, with Houston. Mm-hmm.
He kind of, I know he spent some time here in Tennessee where he kind of flew under the radar because he didn't have much production with Tennessee. Last year, he had 22 solo tackles, 11 assisted tackles, 10 sacks, and 2 forced fumbles, an overall rating of about 85.7. He had a good stint with Cleveland as well. I think, this for me as a Tampa Bay fan, I mean, this actually kind of concerns me because I know what Jadeveon Clowney can do, and I know he is a very big disruptive piece to offensive lines. And so with like I said, with Tampa Bay, like our offensive line, like we held up good last year, but like we got some weak spots. And so like this could be concerning, at least for a divisional play reason for me. But I think it's a good signing for Carolina, a step in the right direction.
Yeah. What was the deal? Do we know?
Well, I'll go ahead while you're looking at that. I think this is a good thing for Carolina. It obviously now missing the presence of Brian Burns after getting traded to the New York Giants. I think that Clowney had a kind of a resurgence last year. Provided some really good production on the Ravens last year where they needed it at most. That defense was a big reason for that team's success last year. And now going to Carolina Panthers team that is trying to find their footing again as a football team, providing a very good veteran edge presence on that defense. He can stop the run. He can rush the quarterback. He's been in the league for a long time, so he's seen it all. Overall, I really like this signing for Carolina.
Yeah, and to answer your question, Lil Jake, it's a 2-year deal. Total of $24 million was the deal.
That's not a bad deal. To me, Clowney has always felt like he hasn't lived up to his potential. Listen, he's proven to be a solid defensive lineman. Don't get me wrong; he's no scrub. But I always felt like he's never really lived up to that number 1 overall thing. He got hurt early. And just kind of think he's bounced around as a solid pass rush. I actually think that contract isn't way too bad. Because in my mind, I thought to myself, Carolina, he probably went there because he wanted to get paid a little bit. You know what I mean? But it's not a bad deal. Carolina's still not going to be a team that even relatively competes for another year or two. I mean, he's a nice stopgap guy, and I'm sure he'll, provide some help with that pass rush. But for the most part, this is a slight improvement for this team.
All right, what we got up next is L'Jarius Sneed getting traded from the Kansas City Chiefs to the wasteland known as Tennessee. He had 65 solo tackles last year, 2 interceptions, 81 targets, so 81 balls thrown at him, and then 42 receptions allowed. Overall, 71%. For the Titans are going to need all the help that they can get. That's all that I can say, because it's the Titans, and I still hate their marketing crew.
See, I actually thought this was a pretty good deal. I mean, he's actually a very good cornerback.
Absolutely.
I was kind of surprised Kansas City said see ya. I guess they were very confident in what they had behind him. And I guess when you have Patrick Mahomes on offense, sometimes on defense you go, yeah, we can let that guy go. We can let that happen. We'll make up for it offensively.
We can manage.
Right, But for Tennessee, they got a solid corner out of it. I mean, he makes their defense significantly better. Now you got a guy that can lock on to all the ones and hold it down for you. I think this is actually a very underrated signing. I think that was a hefty bit of a price they paid for him, but at the same time, he wanted his money. Kansas City didn't want to give it to him, so he said, "Send me somewhere that will pay me."
Yeah, the Titans definitely needed that number one corner, guy that can match up on all the ones and do a successful job. And L'Jarius Sneed, I feel kind of gets left out of that top tier corner talk just because he was on the Chiefs and gets overshadowed so much by that Kansas City offense. But I mean, if you look at last year, man, if it wasn't for the Chiefs defense last year in certain games, I don't know if they would have won half of the games that they played. I mean, it wasn't Patrick Mahomes' best year last year, and it was, because I know I had him on my fantasy team. He was the 10th best fantasy quarterback when he's usually number one or number two every year. And not saying fantasy football is the telltale sign of everything, but I mean, that just goes to show you right there that their offense wasn't as explosive as it usually is. And, their defense really carried them in a lot of games. Now, Kansas City's offense kind of, started to find its footing at the right time. But, during the regular season, when they were still trying to figure everything out, with all the drop passes, with all the, receivers not, doing what they're supposed to do. Case in point, the Kadarius Toney situation. It was their defense that was, helping them win games, and L'Jarius Sneed was a big reason for that. And now he goes to the Titans, where they are desperately in need of a corner that can produce, and this is the guy that you want to get. So I think it was a great trade. I really do. I think trading for this guy was the right move.
Is Mike Williams going from the Chargers to the Jets, giving Aaron Rodgers another target to throw at. Again, I believe this was another player who was injured last year. I think he got injured late in the season, correct? I mean, I know he's been kind of prone to some injuries too. I feel like every time I hear about Mike Williams, he's usually getting injured. But I mean, again, when he plays, and he's healthy, he's a great target. So last year he had 25 targets, 19 receptions, 249 yards, and a touchdown. Overall stat of about 74 and a half. Again, I think, this gives Aaron Rodgers another target, and as long as he can stay healthy, it's a good target to throw at.
Sure.
And it was funny watching the Hall of Fame game with Tara, and Tara, they panned over to the Bears sideline, and Tara was like, when the hell did Keenan Allen get to Chicago?
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh yeah, he was, they picked him up in a trade for a 4th round pick or whatever. And she was like, oh, okay, well, I thought it was the other guy. I was like, Mike Williams? And she was like, yeah. I was like, oh yeah, he's on the Jets now. And she's like, what? What the hell? I was like, yeah, I know. That's how pieces move in the NFL. So
yeah. And Justin Herbert in the Chargers locker room is going, "Donde está my shit?" Yep.
For real,
so
though.
Yeah, and so anyway, this is another case almost like J.K. Dobbins. Was somebody that when he's healthy, he's a top tier receiver. There's no question about it. The guy can jump out of the gym, but the thing is, man, is he just can't ever stay on the field for extended periods of time. And he's going to be playing a lot of home games at a stadium that is infamous for having wide receiver injuries. I know because I'm a Giants fan. A lot of our receivers get injured. It's happened. I mean, if you look at Sterling Shepard's career, you'll see that. Anyway, but, if the guy can stay healthy, and that's a big if, this gives a complementary piece to Garrett Wilson. This is a guy that can line up outside and win, dominantly win one-on-one matchups that he has on him. This is almost a guy that you got to double cover in certain situations. If he's on the field, it's going to open up a lot for this New York Jets offense, but we'll see if he can stay healthy.
Yeah, this Mike Williams is a guy who is synonymous with having a questionable mark next to his name whenever you see it on fantasy football. Lots of potential this guy had off rip, and injuries derailed him from ever living up to that. He still has the tools. He still has the ability when he's on the field to be a difference maker, and I think he will be a great asset to Aaron Rodgers if he can stay on the field.
All right, our last new home player is going to be Tyron Smith, offensive lineman from Dallas, going to the Jets. A tackle, obviously, that the Jets are going to need, right? Aaron Rodgers, if he's going to play this year, wants to not have a repeat of last season and get hurt 4 snaps into the season. So last year, Tyron Smith played 847 snaps. He had 3 penalties against him, but he only allowed 1 sack, which is really good. He's rated an 83.8. And by the way, all those who are wondering where I'm getting this information from, it's from PFF. So it is basically where I'm pulling it from. So you can look at it as well. But yeah, again, great addition to the Jets offensive line. Again, if Aaron Rodgers is going to play this season, he needs protection. So good signing for the Jets.
Yeah, Tyron Smith has been a staple at the left tackle position for a long time, and I was really surprised that the Cowboys let him walk away. And I know some Cowboys fans were not the happiest that this happened. But I mean, for the Jets, this is great. I mean, yes, he's had a couple seasons where he hasn't been on the field a lot, but I mean, this isn't where Tyron Smith has had injury history, but he to me I can never put that injury prone tag on him. For some reason I just won't allow myself to do it, just because I've seen him on the field so much. And protecting Dak Prescott for a very long time. I've seen that, and so hopefully they can get some of the similar production out of him that the Cowboys did. So we'll see how it pans out. I think on paper this is a great signing.
Yeah, I think so as well. You're trying to shore up that offensive line and protect Aaron Rodgers so that he doesn't get himself destroyed again. Yeah, that's absolutely what they need. And again, it's just one of those at one point elite level talents that you need on your team when you're trying to win a Super Bowl.
All right, well, that wraps up our new home players for this episode. We are excited to see what these guys do and in their new places and kind of get a hold of the new teams and everything. But be on the lookout, because we are going to put out another episode of Staying Home. So some players got some contract extensions. Oh yeah, a lot of big extensions that came through, and so we're going to touch on some of those. Again, thank you for supporting us. Make sure that you guys follow, subscribe. I got the ticker down below for where you can find us on Instagram and Facebook, and then on YouTube. just continue to build with us on this journey as we continue our way up to the top. And ladies and gentlemen, the Foo Fighters. So,
The Foo Fighters.
the Foo Fighters. But this has been the very new episode of KFR Sportscast. I am one of your hosts, BG, and as always with Big Sexy and the Heel. And we will talk to you guys next time. Peace out.
Big Sexy out.